Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 5:06 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, United States Marine Jessie Jane Duff will be with us. We'll talk to her about Kamala Harris's decision this weekend to attack an event organized by Gold Star families, what she makes of that. And you can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. I want to get to some more of the audio from the Gold Star families who, when they saw Kamala Harris's posts on social media this weekend attacking their event, well, they've got words to say about all of that. I'll share that with you ahead of our conversation with Jessie Jane Duff. But before I get there, I do want to take another call here. I've got Mark calling in from Woodbridge on line 2. Mark, good afternoon, sir. Happy Labor Day. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hi, Vince. Thank you for taking my call. I was just thinking about the statistics that you were mentioning a little bit ago about the different states cleaning up the voter rolls, removing non-citizens.
Yes.
And we hear about a few thousand here and there. And it strikes me that maybe myself and maybe others might think, well, maybe those numbers seem a little bit low, compared to the sheer numbers of people who vote.
Sure.
But there are a couple of very reputable sources that you might even consider interviewing, in the future. One is Through the Vote, and the other one is Rasmussen, Mark Mitchell, I think it is, from Rasmussen. And they've stated some very high percentages of, likely non-citizen people who don't even know if they're citizens, as 9 or 10%, or even Rasmussen put out an article in late July saying about 9% of the voting population was either non-citizen or, that sounds like a high number, but it's in writing. So I just thought maybe that would be something that people would be interested in looking at.
Those are good leads on some interesting things, especially, True the Vote. That's Catherine Engelbrecht's organization.
Yes.
They've been digging in on this. And in fact, she did an interview with Tucker Carlson a couple months ago. And in it, she was talking about how there's an element of the law that illegals can exploit. And really, this is a way of saying Democrats can exploit to have illegals vote. Listen to her explain this. I just pulled this up as you were telling me. This is Tucker and Catherine Engelbrecht.
So would you mind explaining what seems at first blush a very far-fetched idea that the U.S. Code, as of right now, as of our speaking, would allow illegal aliens to vote in the upcoming presidential election? How would that work?
Yeah, well, True the Vote, the organization I founded some years ago, has been long involved in looking at the accuracy of the voter rolls. And we've long maintained that inaccurate voter rolls lead to inaccurate elections. So with that as a backdrop, we've been very concerned about the lack of availability to determine citizenship status, not just by groups like ours, but by states themselves. They can't get close enough to a citizenship status database to make good determinations. That then led me to look a little deeper, because as you rightly lay out, there's a motivation here. So what might that be? We've seen many, many videos of people coming across the border who are talking about their excitement about voting for Joe Biden and claiming that they are citizens. But yet, we hear debates in Congress where the congressman will say, don't worry, the non-citizens can't vote. It's a crime of perjury. It's a felony. So, okay. We took a deep look at the criminal code, and Title 18 left us just gobsmacked, because when you read all the way through it, as it lists all of the stipulations against non-citizen voting in federal elections, and lays out the penalties therefore, scroll all the way down to the fine print. And what you read is that non-citizens can vote without penalty if at the time they are voting, they believe themselves to be U.S. citizens.
Well, that seems insane. I'm taking your word for it. I'm not a lawyer or an expert in the federal code. But is there any other crime? Like, if I can show that I didn't know I was robbing a liquor store, I had a gun in my hand, I was demanding money, but I didn't really think it was robbery, does that shields me from being prosecuted for robbing a liquor store?
No, certainly not. But I will say that this state of mind idea is something that we've come up against in the past related to domicile. As we've done reviews of the voter rolls, and you see people that are registered, but they're registered to vacant lots, they're registered to fast food restaurants, and the press you get back from the state as well. But, residency is a state of mind. This takes that to an entirely different level. And
isn't that amazing? So remember the phrase "ignorance of the law is no excuse," unless you're voting. Apparently, that's the exception to that. So, Mark, you're right. Fascinating and important conversation to be had around that issue. And I really appreciate. Last word to you, Mark. I know you're still sitting there.
Oh, thank you. No, I just think that if people are interested in looking up truethevote.org, they've been working on this project called the 611 Project to try to eliminate non-citizens from voting, and they have a very lengthy, detailed write-up there about how it all started, how we got here, and statistics and so forth. I can't say enough about True the Vote. I think they're the tip of the spear when it comes to election integrity. So,
well, you can't fault anybody who wants us to have clean elections. That's how is that objectionable? Unless you're a member of the Democrat Party. Thank you very much. I appreciate the call, Mark.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. As Mark in Woodbridge there, which brings us to Tom in Waldorf on line 4. Hello, Tom. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hello, Vince. Great show. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
My idea is just kind of a simple one, really. We know all these people are voting, and we know that the Democrats have told them to vote. They're finding pamphlets from South American places where they're instructing them how to vote. How about if you could influence the powers that be, whether it be the Trump campaign or the RNC, to take out a series of ads on every Spanish-speaking radio and TV station in the country telling them that they, in all likelihood, they will be found out, they will be arrested, and put a little tag on there that the Democrats are using them, and if caught, they'll be deported. At least that might stop some of them.
So two or three quick thoughts on that. One is going back to like the ignorance of the law is no excuse kind of stuff. If people are warned going into a polling place, there are federal consequences for voting if you're not a United States citizen. There are consequences for that. It's a good way to establish that, no, they were warned, actually, a bunch of times as they were heading into the polling place. And that would be, I think, a useful thing to do at all of these polling places. The idea that you would do this on Spanish-language stations, you could, but the reality here is that so much of our illegal immigration picture has changed a lot, Tom. You may have at one point been able to safely assume that we were having a ton of illegal immigration from Spanish-speaking countries. But now, thanks to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, we have illegals from everywhere on the planet speaking more languages than you or I could probably ever get our heads around. It's crazy. So to the extent that any of this can be done, it probably should be done close to the polling place or anywhere anyone has these contact points with voting. And we've had other callers before suggest that maybe some signage should be put up outside of these polling places, letting people know there are consequences for voting if you're not a citizen of the United States. But what's crystal clear is we need a system we can trust, and we need to make sure people who are going to water down legitimate votes are nowhere near pulling those levers. So, Tom, thank you. I appreciate the call.
Well, thank you so much for everything that you do, sir.
Yeah. Good to hear from you today, Tom. All right, hey, I want to get back to this audio again before we get to Jessie Jane Duff, because we had a bunch of the families, the Gold Star families, coming out this week after Kamala Harris. She posted to her X account this weekend, or whatever her campaign did, attacking that Arlington ceremony last week. And she said that, quote, Donald Trump's team chose to film a video there, resulting in an altercation with cemetery staff. Biden people jumped out in front of the cameras, tried to stop the images from being captured. She said, let me be clear. The former president disrespected sacred ground, all for the sake of a political stunt. Now, the families have come out and they've recorded a number of videos, just of themselves, selfie videos, saying, no, we invited Trump. And your behavior, Kamala Harris, is awful, is just awful. Here is the mother of Corporal Humberto Sanchez. Her name is Coral Doolittle. This is a video that she put together and posted to the internet this weekend.
My name is Coral Doolittle. I am Corporal Humberto Sanchez's mother. This is my statement of what happened on August 26, 2024. My son is not buried in Arlington, but I really feel like when President Trump went and paid tribute and paid his respect in Arlington for our kids, it was not just the ones buried in there. It was for all of our kids, and it was an invitation that the families actually extend to him, and it's not the first time that he actually meet with us and share time and with our families. After 3 years until now, Kamala Harris and President Biden didn't even say their 13 names. They called the withdrawal in Afghanistan a success. And for us, it was just sadness and a disgrace. They are the responsible persons of murdering our kids. And until this day, they did not give us a meeting. They did not accept to meet with us and give us an explanation of what happened. Being him the commander-in-chief, he definitely left our kids behind and just to fill the agenda of his prior commitments. I invite Kamala Harris and Joe Biden to accept the meeting with us and meet with us and explain us what was the whole deal behind the withdrawal in Afghanistan. I think that as a parents, we deserve a explanation and we deserve the truth of what happened with our kids that day.
So how could you hear some audio like that and think to yourself, the bad guy in this story is Trump. Trump's the bad guy. When all the Gold Star families keep saying the same thing. We invited him to be with us. Herman Lopez also is the father of Corporal Hunter Lopez and had this to say.
Good afternoon. My name is Herman Lopez. I'm a Gold Star father. My son, Corporal Hunter Lopez, was a U.S. Marine killed in action on August 26, 2021. This message is intended for Vice President Kamala Harris. I'm not a person who usually takes to social media, but earlier today, your post regarding the incident at Arlington National Cemetery was brought to my attention. After reading it, it caused a reaction with me. You indicated in your post that you support the military and military families. I, for one, have not seen that support. It's been 3 years since my son was killed in action, and myself, my family, and other Gold Star families have not seen any support from you or your administration. You may make hollow promises about the economy or anything else you'd like to make promises about. But one thing that I ask of you, and the reason I'm making this message, is for you to stop making comments about your support for the military. As a Gold Star father, I know that you have not supported us. I know that you have not supported other Gold Star families. Please stop making these types of comments because that support has not been demonstrated. Your words are hollow and empty. My other request is that for the American public to know that these messages, these promises from Kamala Harris, especially in regard to supporting the military and our military families, are false and baseless. They have not been proven, and she has not earned our respect. Thank you very much.
All right. More in a moment. We do have, again, a lot more audio from the Gold Star families, and then we'll get a reaction from Jessie Jane Duff, United States Marine. She'll join us in just minutes to kind of sort through what's going on here. As a major presidential campaign, the Democrats have decided to attack an event organized by the Gold Star families to honor their children. Among the families speaking out this weekend, the Gold Star families, there was also a woman who we have spoken to here on this program. I know Chris Plant had her on his program earlier this week as well. We'll actually make that last week. Christy Shamblin, she's the mother-in-law of Sergeant Nicole G., and here's what she had to say about everything.
Vice President Harris, my name is Christy Shamblin. My daughter-in-law, Sergeant Nicole Leanne G., was killed in the Afghanistan exit at Abbey Gate on August 26, 2021. This year, for the 3rd year anniversary of her murder, we welcome President Donald J. Trump to Arlington to lay a wreath on the tomb of the unknown soldier with our family and to visit Nicole graveside. President Trump and his team were respectful. They listened to our stories and didn't talk much at all. We welcomed them that day and they were comfort to our family. Vice President Harris, I ask you, why won't you return a call and explain to us how you call my daughter-in-law's death a success? Vice President Harris, why will you not express your condolences yourself? Why have we never heard from you? And finally, why would you take a day where we celebrated the death of our loved one and use it to disparage not only them, but us? President Trump has called, President Trump shows up, and President Trump takes the time to hear our loved ones' stories. Why won't you do the same?
And all these Gold Star families are motivated to speak out in the midst of Kamala Harris's attack on that event. Also, Steve Nakui released a video. He's the father of Lance Corporal Kareem M. Nakui.
Vice President Harris, my name is Steve Nakui. I'm the father of Lance Corporal Kareem. In exchange for political...
I'm sorry, did you not hear it from the top? Is that where... Okay. My fault. That was my fault. Here he is again.
Vice President Harris, my name is Steve Nakui. I'm the father of Lance Corporal Kareem M. Nakui. And your administration killed my son. Deliberately in exchange for political theatrics so you could have a final day of the evacuation coincide with September 11th. Ignoring the advice of your generals, the Doha Agreement, and countless other veterans and members of Congress. Denying the safety of the Afghans and the servicemen and women. Your choice to play politics in 2021 killed 170 Afghans, 13 U.S. service members, and wounded 45 of our service members, as well as countless Afghans. You were not at Dover for the dignified transfer. At no time have you reached out to me to offer your condolences, to offer thank you for Kareem's sacrifice and service. Not once have you honored him by saying his name, so I said it for you. You have disparaged all 13 who have lost their lives as well as their families, exhibiting your lack of gratitude by your silence.
All right, those are the families speaking out about all of this. Joining us in just a moment, Jessie Jane Duff. She's a retired Gunnery Sergeant, United States Marine. We'll get her reaction to Kamala Harris's bewildering decision this weekend to begin attacking that Gold Star family event. Stay with us.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick. And it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick. Soothing comfort for the whole family. And when you need more comfort for yourself, try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks vapors. Use as directed. Vapo Stick for use ages 4 and up. Vapo Shower Max use for adults only.
Vice President Harris.
Vice President Harris.
Vice President Harris, my name is Steve Nakui. I'm the father of Lance Corporal Kareem M. Nakui.
My name is Jim McCollum. I am the Gold Star father of United States Marine Corps Lance Corporal Riley McCollum.
This is Mark Schmitz, Gold Star father of Marine Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz.
My name is Darren Hoover, and I'm the Gold Star father of United States Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Taylor Hoover.
My daughter-in-law, Sergeant Nicole Leanne G., was killed in the Afghanistan exit at Abbey Gate.
Our kids were murdered because of your administration.
You were not at Dover for the dignified transfer. At no time have you reached out to me to offer your condolences, to offer thank you for Kareem's sacrifice and service.
You have 13 families who have been waiting over 3 years to so much as get a phone call, to so much as hear our kids' names said aloud
You failed for 3 years and 8 months to acknowledge our kids.
Where were you and Joe Biden on August 26, 2024? Nowhere near Arlington Cemetery.
The Gold Star families releasing a series of videos, each of them individually looking into cameras this weekend. That was gathered together by the Trump campaign, shared this weekend in the wake of that. The media are attacking Trump for sharing that footage so that the world can see it. Those videos were induced by Kamala Harris' decision this weekend to attack the Gold Star family organized visit to Arlington last week. They extended an invitation to President Trump to be there. President Trump took them up on that invitation, and the left has been apoplectic ever since. Joining us now to break all of this down is the great Jessie Jane Duff. She's the 2024 campaign executive director for Veterans for Trump and a retired gunnery sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. It's great to have you back with us, Jessie Jane.
Hey, Vince, for this particular topic, this is just crushing to see that Kamala Harris had decided that this was the appropriate thing for her to go after President Trump on. She should have left this one alone because she opened up such a wound, one that was pretty much the catalyst that was the beginning of the demise of the Biden administration. You know, the economy, the issues with the inflation reduction, all of the issues had not really surfaced fully boiled over, but from just a few months into this administration, 7.5, 8 months into the administration, they had this botched Afghanistan withdrawal, and it caused even an increase in veteran suicide. It caused many veterans at that point to recognize, and active duty military, that we have an extremely irresponsible leadership in this White House to do this, to sacrifice people so willingly and easily without any acknowledgement of them. Since then, we know that they have not acknowledged the Gold Star families on repeated attempts to do such. So I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart for bringing me on to allow me to speak for those that do not have a voice on this.
This saga has been just awful throughout, certainly the events of 3 years ago, but I just mean in this past week, just watching how this all took place, because we've learned a lot since last week, Monday's events. It was a beautiful event to see President Trump alongside the Gold Star families, but it happened in spite of the fact that the Biden administration tried to stop it. We found out later that the Biden people were throwing all sorts of barriers in the way to try and prevent President Trump from even being there with the Gold Star families. And then it was Speaker Mike Johnson who was able to make some phone calls and get everything opened up. The president goes, and then the Biden administration tries to create drama around whether or not they would allow photos of the event. And now they've turned around and they're attacking the Trump campaign for that. And then the families throughout all of this have just been very open about how it all came to be. They said, look, we invited President Trump. He came. We wanted him there. We wanted pictures taken. What am I missing here, Jessie Jane?
You know, exactly. I can't get my head around why they thought this would be a good political stunt on their part, because that's exactly what it has become. And to your point, that they threw all these barriers in place. And then when I saw the Army put out the statement on an employee, part of me thought, shame on you. Absolutely shameful. You know, whatever happened with this employee, there's been no witnesses to it. We've seen nobody come forward and say, yes, there was an altercation. But even in Kamala Harris's tweet that she put out, trying to suggest there was an altercation gives the impression that President Trump himself was some kind of bully throughout this event. It's not necessarily what was said, it's how she says it. And yet we have no witnesses of this. Tulsi Gabbard was even there and witnessed everything run smoothly. The families have said everything ran smoothly. But what they are is ashamed. And for the very effort that they put forward on trying to stop it, because they didn't want more exposure put on them for this absolute debacle that occurred 3 years ago. We all saw it on television. We saw the people hanging from the aircraft that fell to their deaths. We saw that there were people trying to get over there and in there to get evacuated. We know there's well over 100 Americans to this day who have been forgotten and are still in and under Taliban surveillance, if they're even still alive. We know that we didn't get many of our interpreters out. We abandoned so many of our allies, let alone leaving the equipment in Bagram Air Base. Everything about this, there has not been one positive thing that has occurred from this, other than you ended the war, but it could have been done a heck of a lot better. And to suggest we ended something, the enemy still has a say, because they have been ruckshot all over Afghanistan now. So you're right. What am I missing? What was it that they tried to prevent? They ended up creating their own headline that they could have just stayed silent. This too would have passed. It happened on a Friday. Here we are Monday. So, nobody would have been talking about it still. But yet they put it right there on the front.
Yeah, so what is this? Why would the campaign make this decision of all things? Obviously, they were embarrassed by this. They know that it looks really awful for them, and rightfully so. But they decided this weekend that they would bring this to a new phase, that they would attack that event entirely, the event where the Gold Star families were assembled to honor their children. Now Kamala Harris's campaign puts out a statement using that to attack Trump. Does this make any sense from a political standpoint?
It's a sinking ship, and they basically have tried to throw out the last life raft to try to save Kamala, but they don't realize that there's about 300 people that need that raft before her. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to throw out a last saving life raft, and they've underestimated how offensive this is, which goes to show you they don't have any veterans or military personnel that are actively working with them to say this is the one line you should never cross. So they were completely politically naive. There's 22.5 million veterans in this country, okay? In your swing states alone, you have over 600,000 veterans. In Pennsylvania, you have over 730 some odd thousand veterans. The highest concentration of veterans in the country is in Pennsylvania. And that's a fact I learned being on the campaign. I was shocked to hear that. But this is actually going to move the needle now, because, people who wanted to sit off on the sidelines, people who probably just don't like to get politically involved. Keep in mind, many people are reliant upon government assistance of some sort. They don't like to have their opinions out there. But this has activated veterans in the military community and their families like none other, because almost every single one of us knows of or knows somebody personally who died. And we know people that went through this trauma. So to now exploit this the way she has to try to admonish the president, and then when you read the former president, when you read her ex-statement, she even went with the debunked lie of the suckers and losers. Like, it's a last gasp she has, because nobody respects her, let alone they're trying to deflect off of Tim Walz' stolen valor because of his command sergeant major claim to fame that he was never a command sergeant major other than 45 days before he got reduced in rank, and his allegations of serving in combat.
The New York Times today had a piece about all of this and said that it was Trump. Trump is the problem here because Trump had used the Gold Star families to attack Kamala Harris, which is just, talk about the media's coverage of this being so jacked up. They're taking up for Kamala Harris when Kamala Harris clearly is the problem in all of this. What do you make of the media just instantly throwing in with even the most cartoonish possible defenses?
What's so tragic is that in 1980, when Jimmy Carter was running against Ronald Reagan, one of the greatest catalysts that got Ronald Reagan in office was the fact that we had Iranian hostages that had been held over a year, and they had the ticking clock. The media would cover it accurately, and nothing was moving until Ronald Reagan got elected, and then boom, all those hostages were released. Those hostages are now in their 50s, many of them, the younger ones, some of them since passed away. But we don't have a media that's covering this appropriately, because this event in itself, between the Afghanistan event and their lack of empathy towards these families, the lack of ever even calling their names at the State of the Union, keep that in mind. That would have been an opportunity many times. The media is covering this up, and it's the right-wing media and the moderate media, such as your show, Newsmax, OAN, Fox News. They're covering it. But I'll tell you, the biggest thing that they got out there was those X posts. Even Elon Musk retweeted the video footage of these families. And when you got Elon Musk, and it got Trump to come back onto X, and he rebutted Kamala's post with a video from each family member, 8 tweets went out rebuttaling her. This has made the media can only cover so long. People can see with their own eyes that these families wanted him there, and what she did was disgusting. She cannot recover from this. Now it's a matter of the American people deciding, do you want her to be your next commander-in-chief when she can't even acknowledge those that have died in their service or has abandoned them? She was under the administration that she was comfortable with their death. She said she was comfortable. And then you got Tim Walz, one heartbeat away, who appears to be some type of Chinese agent now with his stolen valor. This is the most reprehensible left-wing ticket that we could have ever look. If they were moderates, we might have some concern on this campaign, but the American people know that this is really not the people you want in charge of that White House or your troops.
So Jessie Jane Duff, you've been in and around media and politics for some time, so you are going to be more attuned to this, I think, than most. But it's not a small deal that these Gold Star families are speaking in public. It seems like a very big deal that they're saying all of this. And part of the reason I say it's a big deal is not only are they contributing to the national conversation and really pushing back on a major presidential candidate who they feel abandoned by, but they're also opening themselves up to some of the lunacy that the left has to offer. It's not, when you put your name out there in a space like this and you speak up on behalf of especially Donald Trump, that comes with it the weight of having to deal with the incoming, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That's why they thought they were on offense, and now they're definitely on defense. When President Trump goes to the platform and now punched back 10 times harder, I should say 100 times harder. It is appalling if she were to watch each of those videos. It's to your point about the Gold Star families. Many of them, not every single family came out, but 8 of the 13 came out with a video. And that because they know they give up their privacy, they put their names out there. These are things that many Americans do not want to do. But one father said it very well. Here I am now having to give up my Labor Day weekend celebration with the little bit of family I do have left to come out because it's important to defend President Trump and what he has done for our family. You murdered my son. And that's what he says, along with the 12 others. Keep in mind, the average age of a United States Marine is 21 years old. There was only one Marine that was killed that was over the age of 25. The Navy corpsman was 19. These were young people. Even Sergeant Nicole G., who everybody remembers from Carrying the Baby, I Love My Job, was barely 25, and she had just picked up the rank of sergeant not even a month earlier. These were young people. Shameful that we haven't heard more military or former military leaders who were in that Pentagon speak out. The only one that we ever saw speak out ended up being removed from his command, the lieutenant colonel, who ended up being jailed because he spoke up, which, yes, on active duty we are not to do. However, we should have seen more military people resigning. I'm embarrassed as a Marine that the Marine Corps leadership did not, because they made that assignment. They allowed many of those young men and women to be on that post who were not infantry-trained Marines, let alone had never done a tour in Afghanistan. And were they caught off guard? Was the rug pulled out from under them? Did they realize that Biden-Harris was going to create such a chaotic with removal? They should have known because they were the planners of this. So going back to this, the Harris-Biden administration never acknowledging these families, and Kamala Harris, the only recovery she can do at this point would be to come out with an apology. But she got that tweet out very quickly about the tragic death of the American hostage, and she got that acknowledgement of that American hostage out very quickly, because this lesson told her you cannot ignore it. Even though the Biden-Harris administration is strictly responsible for the Americans still being held hostage in Israel, they are directly responsible, but they know they can't hide from this one. So they try. I'm aghast that she pulled this stunt, and whoever crafted that tweet should be fired, because they're literally tone deaf. Because there's one area most Democrats and Republicans agree on: supporting the military. That is probably the one last threshold. And here you've turned your backs and made this a laughing stock and calling it a publicity stunt. Shame on you.
It's a huge deal for these families to speak up in public about it too. She has
incredible.
She has to live with the consequences of that decision.
Let's just hope it moves this needle, because this lady has no place in ever being a commander-in-chief. If you notice today, she put her earbuds in as she was walking by the 2 Air Force personnel that saluted her. She didn't even have the courtesy to salute them back today.
It's disgusting.
It is.
Jessie Jane Duff, 2024 campaign executive director with Veterans for Trump, retired Gunnery Sergeant, U.S. Marine Corps. Always so nice to talk to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Vince. Thank you. Thank you for bringing this back to the front. Let's keep talking about it for as long as we have till November 5th. Thank you.
You got it. It's 5:51 now. Well, we've reached the phase of the campaign where Bill Maher is accusing the Democrat nominee and her running mate of just being liars. Here's Bill Maher Friday on HBO.
And when Tim Walz said, like, the American people, I talk like they do. No, you don't. No, you don't. You're a huge liar, like all politicians are. I don't care, by the way. I've always said this about politics. They're all going to lie. They're politics. It's what they lie about. I don't give a what you did during the Iraq War. You were in the Guard. So I don't understand why they just can't. You're just insulting my intelligence. When she said, what did you say when Biden called you and said he wasn't running? Well, I immediately thought of him first. No, you didn't. You know, I mean, fracking. Dana Bash had her dead to rights. It's like, you said this. I have the quote. I'm reading it to you. You said there should be a ban on fracking. Why can't they just go, yeah, you know what? I got it wrong. I was talking to the wrong people. You know, she's had this ridiculously high turnover. Like 42 of 47 people as vice president are gone. Just blame it on them. You know why these assholes are gone? Gave me the wrong information on fracking.
I tell you before, he's genuinely frustrated. He's all over the place. He can barely contain himself. He's like naming lie after lie after lie that Tim Walz and Kamala Harris have been telling. Kamala Harris made up an accent today in Detroit. She was speaking to union people.
You better thank a union member. For the 5-day work week. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
But whatever you do, don't thank a union member for coming up with that lousy accent. She has to own that one on her own. The great one, Mark Levin, up next.